Hello and welcome back to Quarterline. We're going to look at a very popular car today. We're going to look at the Ford Escort. Now that's the European Ford Escort, of course. First seen in November 67, it actually came to the Motor Show in January 1968. 68 is commonly referred to as being when it was first introduced. When it first came out in 1968, it was only available as a two-door version in two engines, the 1100 and the 1300. Later in the following year, 1969, the Estate came out, and also the four-door Escort came out as well. Now they were still in the same specs as when it was launched. There was three different ones. There was the Deluxe, the Super and the GT. And like I say, that was available in 1100 and 1300 cc's. Now the brochure we're going to look at today is from 1969, so it does show them original spec vehicles, and it also shows the Estates, the four doors and the two doors. 1970 came around, they changed things quite dramatically, and 1970s when we had things like the RS 1600, we had things like the Mexico, so them really ones that are very collectible these days and very expensive. But we're going to look at these earlier specs today, and we'll look at the brochure and we'll see how much it changed from what it replaced the Ford Anglia. So let's have a look at that now. Okay, so here we have the brochure itself. Like I say, this is from 1969. So we're already into 1 year of production of the Ford Escort, and here we have it, finally a four-door version arrives. The first thing you notice about the Ford Escort is what a conservative design it was, particularly when you compare it to the Ford Anglia. Let's just have a look at the Ford Anglia and look how much that's changed. Now this is another front cover of a brochure, this time showing the Ford Anglia. And it's full of designs. It's got fins, it's got angles, it's got that unusual opposite facing rear window, which was so controversial at the time. It's certainly a lot more, dare I say it, stylish car. So why did they go for such a conservative design after this? Well, that's kind of where the thinking was going, and a more conservative design seemed to be what the public wanted, and of course it was correct, because the Ford Escort sold in vast numbers, of course. Now of course that's not to say the Ford Escort wasn't a good looking car. It certainly was, particularly with this sort of Coke bottle designed line going from back to front. It certainly was very well proportioned. Anyway, let's have a look inside and see what we can see in this brochure. Inside that first cover is this kind of like strange little introduction, the small cars that aren't. I guess the introduction to this new car to anyone who hasn't really looked at it. They're roomy so you can stretch without bothering anyone else. They're comfortable so you can relax, etc, etc. It goes on and then introduces the three Escorts. We'll look inside and see what we can see further. So finally we get a look at the first model and the inside of the first Escort. This is the Escort Deluxe Saloon. Despite its name, this is the base model. I guess calling it Deluxe, you kind of like felt you were getting more than what you really did. This is the 1100cc engine in it. The 1100 really was quite underpowered in the Escort, so you think of these Escorts as being fun vehicles. The 1100 certainly wasn't that. You'll also notice with the Deluxe Saloon, these had round front headlights. We'll see in the later models how that headlight shape changed, but overall this is available in 2 or 4 doors, but the very basic model, if you will. Okay, here we are, finally moving up the range, the Escort Super Saloon. An unusual name, and like I say, the following year they kind of like sorted these strange names out to being more sense, if you will. But additionally, over the one, the first noticeable change is now we've gone to these sort of rectangular headlights, where they are in fact round on the more basic version. Additional to that, you kind of got the chrome gear shifter, wheel trim rings, rectangular headlights like we said, deep embossed PVC upholstery, superior seating style, looped pile carpet, colour keyed interior features, seats, door and rear side panels in light tone, carpet, fascia and steering wheel in a darker tone, luggage compartment mat, cigar lighter, water temperature gauged and simulated wood finish to the fascia. Overall, it was a much nicer all-round package to that very basic deluxe trim. It talks here about the 63 brake horsepower 1300cc engine, but you could still get it in that 1100. Certainly the 1300 was really the engine you wanted for a little bit more driving enjoyment. At the bottom here it says, all in all, the Super sounds like the best Escort you could lay your hands on, but you still have the GT consider. Turn the next page. I think this is quite amusing actually at the top here where it says Deluxia or Deluxer, sorry. So it's Deluxer than the Deluxe. You know, a bit of a mouthful. It's a strange little title there. Anyway, let's move on to the GT. The top model, the GT. Now this is claiming obviously to be the sporty model of them all, and certainly you can see it's a very sporty looking interior with all them additional dials. The engine was a high performance 1300cc engine with a special high lift camshaft. The fuel system was a twin choke Weber carburettor. Inside there, that large binnacle containing speedometer, odometer, tachometer, separate fuel gauge, temperature gauge, oil pressure gauge and battery condition indicator. It's still got that simulated wood finish on there as well. So like I said, this is where it's really trying to be a sporty model. On here it says it has high style and high performance. Performance first, 60 miles per hour in the area of 13 seconds. A top speed in the mid 90s. It certainly wasn't a fast vehicle by any stretch of the imagination, but we have to remember this is the late 60s, of course. We can see it here in a 4-door version. Kind of like the 2-door versions are what really are what people want now. So the 2 doors now tend to be a more expensive vehicle. So you could also get it in the 2-door version. Obviously much cheaper then, but to collectors today, they preferred it as a 2-door. And no doubt some of these were changed to become things like Mexicos and RS 1600s, clones, etc. But much nicer in its original trim, I think, as a GT saloon. I wonder how many of these little GT saloons are still around today. So here we have it. This is really where Ford Escorts really come into it. They had great rally success in late 60s, late 70s. They really did dominate. And this particular page is showing this Escort twin cam. And that was a 110 miles per hour Lotus powered Escort. That certainly would be an extremely fast vehicle in its day. Like I say, that rear wheel drive setup really worked well with these rallies before the 4-wheel drive Audis etc. really took over. Now what we sometimes forget is Ford did have a lot of success before this. Even the Ford Anglia, which doesn't look like a performance car by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly in the mid-60s, 1966, it was a saloon car champion. So they always played around with that rally success. They really played on the rally success with the Escort though, and rally wins really did make for sales on the high street as well. Even today, I think a lot of the reasons why the Escort is a valuable car now is going back to the rally success. That sort of heritage really sells the cars and has really made it a collectible car today. Strangely, on last page it talks about Ford engineering the rally success. It talks about the Escort automatics. Yes, you could also get it in an automatic. A look at is the Ford Escort estate cars. I always thought these were quite unusual in a number of ways. The first being that extremely long rear window. The other thing is that it was a 3-door, so it's kind of like claiming it's a family car but it's only a 3-door car. I always thought it was strange having a 3-door estate, but nevertheless it was a far better car than the Ford Anglia estate. We'll just have a quick look at the Anglia estate and see how much that improved. You can see the Anglia is a far less practical car, certainly nowhere near the luggage capability as the Escort. So really the Escort estate was a huge improvement over the Anglia. Again, you could have this in two models. You can have it as the Deluxe or the Super, either as an 1100 or a 1300cc engine, and unusually on this one you have front wheel disc brakes, and which were all round, so you know, disc brakes all round at this time was quite unusual, and also power assistance. So yeah, it was a great car. Incidentally, they kind of like carried these over to the Mark II as well. They didn't really change them on the Mark II apart from the front grille and the interiors. Same with the van as well. They kind of like left this design on this Mark I van as well as the Mark II, just changed the grille. So this particular design stayed around for some years. Final page on here, and as you can see, he's talking about the options and accessories. So he's saying options such as inertia reel seat belts, automatic transmission, radial player tyres, manual radio, electric clock, metallic paint. Very basic things in reality. And it goes on to further to say the list of accessories is equally as impressive. So you have overriders, you can have them standard or these are iodine quartz rectangular lamps, wing mirrors. You're not even sure you've got wing mirrors on there, unfortunately. Wheel trims, these very ugly wheel trims. You could have got the basic chrome caps, look far nicer in my opinion. Overtaking door mirror, yes, you can even have a door mirror on your on the opposite side. Underbody protection compound, I would certainly advise you get that on the Escort because they're rusted like nothing. A rear view dipped mirror, child safety harness, petrol locking cap, and reversing lights. Quite unusually on this one, they've kind of like tried to stick a license plate or a numbers plate on there, but you can see it certainly doesn't line up on there. It's just been stuck on later. But that brings us to the end of the Ford Escort brochure. So there we have it, the 1969 Ford Escort brochure. 1970, like I say, he sorted out these unusual trim levels. So then you had the L, the XL, the GT, the Mexico and the RS 1600. The Mark I soldiered on till 1975 when it was replaced with the Mark II. During them 7 years, it attained 2 million buyers. A real success story, and the Escort just went on from success to success, certainly in the UK. It was a #1 seller for many years, and it just felt like it was just the right size of car at the right time. The Cortina had kind of like ballooned to a much larger vehicle and wasn't in that sort of niche size anymore. So the Escort really filled that, and The rest is history. It sold in great numbers. The main problem with the Escort, particularly Mark 1 Escort and the Mark 2s, were rust. Typical 70s, not really protecting them properly. They rusted away to nothing. Fortunately, there is a lot of enthusiasts for Ford Escorts, and today you can buy all the panels still, so they are still restorable. Thank you once again for watching Quarterlight. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon for more brochures and reviews. Goodbye.